my friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Man Cave. See, that proves it right there. The shirt says it all. It's not easy being me. We had a warm weekend. I hope you all had a good weekend. Yeah, it was super hot here. It really was. Up in, mid to upper 90s. In fact, it's almost 90 right now. I just looked at it a second ago. It said 89.8. So that's pretty much 90 already. And it'll get up there this afternoon yet. It'll probably get up to about 93 or so based on the past record. And the humidity's high. So it just hasn't been conducive to doing a whole lot for very long outside. Sue and I both go out and work early in the morning, and that's about it for now. Just too darn hot for this time of year. But one of these days, I promise I will finish the water wheelhouse. We did make some progress, and I'll show you a little bit of that progress here in a minute. Did you see Itchy Boots' most recent video? Boy, that's some beautiful scenery that she's driving through those mountains. And that last place she stayed at, boy, it was just kind of I don't know, she just... It seems like it would be really risky to do what she does, but she just, sees somebody out in the yard. Is this a place to stay or a boarding house or something like that? And he says, sure. And so she comes in and gets a room. I don't know. It just seems like it would be awful risky, but everybody seems to treat her very well. So she seems to be doing pretty well. In other news, often I tell you that people, one of the comments is, you need to get an apprentice or you need an apprentice. Well, I did have an apprentice for a couple years there, a year and a half or more, Caleb Mills Guitars on YouTube. But I've always replied that I have thousands upon thousands of apprentices based on the emails I get. I mean, just thousands, and people are always saying that they're learning how to do this or that from watching my videos. Case in point, this is from Paul Akers. He sent me an email, and basically he said exactly what I just said, that he's been watching my videos and he considers himself one of my mini apprentices. And this is a before and after there that he did on a guitar. And he sent a couple other pictures too, but it's difficult to show them all here like in this format. So I just picked out those two there. I thought that looked really good for an apprentice, I mean, that's really good job. So I thought that looked nice. And Paul, you should be proud. Thank you for the note. Thank you for watching my videos. And we might as well go ahead and get into the water wheelhouse, and I'll got just a little short clip here to show you what the current status is. Well, my friends, we are a little bit of an ugly duckling stage here in the painting and staining process. Not too bad. You give you an idea what it's going to look like. This window here needs quite a bit of touch up on the outside. Sue reached what she could from the inside, and it still needs the board underneath there, and the sideboards painted a little better. I'll get that with the ladder probably. This black door, I took the light out of it, or the window out of it, because the frame, the crosshatch frame, whatever you call that, the lattice, is built inside the glass. You can't get to it, so we've ordered a new glass with black lattice or whatever, and we'll put that in there. When it gets in, this morning I stained the stairs. I sanded them first and then stained them, and I restained this trough as much as I could, and the post. Someone in the comments told me to get rid of that post. They didn't like the post. Well, to me, that's one of the features of it, in my opinion. I think that looks cool. That's kind of the way the old ones were made. They always had something standing out there. In my case, it's just more for looks than it really is for any particular function.
There's really no good way to hold that up without that post, honestly. He said put a bracket on the wall. Well, it's rock. It's hard to mount a bracket into that, and there's no clearance under the trough, between the wheel and the trough, and you need to support it out at the end. Won't do you any good to support it way back here. So anyway, it is what it is. I like the look of it. Too bad, so sad if you don't. I think it looks cool myself. But anyway, the other side here has been painted again also. Sue's been doing the trim. Again, there's some touch up that needs to happen. You can see on top of the trim there that hasn't been painted, but no big deal. I'll get all that stuff with a ladder. There's some up there that needs to be touched up. It's so hot this weekend, and today's Monday morning, but it's been so hot. I mean, it gets up in the 90s, and it's like 94, 95, even higher than that. And with the high humidity and everything, it's just unbearable out here. So we've only been working just an hour or two in the morning, and that's all we've been giving it. Anyway, it's working good. It's going to look real nice once we get it all polished up. It just takes a little bit of extra effort to get to that final polish.
Yeah, just keeps being, the devil's in the detail, as they say, and just keeps being more and more detail. I did a lot of touch up on the finish this morning. I sprayed all the finish on, and I got 99% of it with the sprayer, but there was little places to touch up around, as I mentioned there on the, that post and different things. Even though I had sprayed the post, but it just didn't look like there was enough on it, so I put another coat on that, and the stairs and the ends of the stairs and around underneath the stairs and things like that. I put a lot, stain on there and stuff. In other news on that, regarding that stain, I would highly recommend it. It's good stuff. I like it a lot. Mike Morgan is the one that recommended it. It's Cabot. Well, in our case, it's honey teak is the color we chose. It's got a varnish in it, so it seals and protects from UV, and it gives it a color. I like the color that the water wheelhouse turned out. I think it looks really nice. I think it looks better in person, really, even than it does on the video. I'm real happy with it. Well, that's about all I have for today, so let's get into the comments here. Brian Byler was the first one in and says, afternoon, everyone. Joe Nigan's in there. Wayne Blitz, good afternoon, Jerry and friends. Jerry, hope you hands feel better. Yeah, well, thank you. The hands are just real bad. I mean, they really are, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. They're not getting any better at all. In fact, they hurt all the time, and it just is what it is. I just try to ignore it. It's just like this dang ringing in my ears that I hear all the time. Like right now, it's just really loud, actually. I just try to ignore it, and just keep going. That's all you can do, Mike Bennett's there. Let's see. Ronald Todd's got some question marks. Says, good afternoon, everybody from the West Banks in New Jersey. Bill Webb's there. Good afternoon. And let's see. Gino Hitch says, hi, Jerry and friends. Is a beautiful day here in Monroe, Ohio. Picked up a Strata copy violin at the yard sale for $20. I got to tear it all apart and redo it. Well, cool. Those are always fun to mess with. And since you mentioned it, I might as well just say it, because lots of people still just don't understand all this. But if you find anything at a yard sale or in an attic or, in somebody's basement, and it says Stradivari, in there, Stradivarius or whatever, 99.9999999% chance. In other words, there's about 1 in 1/10 millionth of a chance that you're going to find a real Stradivari violin. First of all, they know where 99.99999% of them are that are in existence, and there was just gazillions of copies made in the late 1800s. And so, like, when you look in the violin, and like it says 93 maybe. I'm just making that date up, of course. But if you look in the violin and the label says 1693, well, then the odds are it was made in 1893. They made them approximately 200 years and dated them approximately 200 years after Stradivari lived. In other words, they tried to copy a particular model of a Stradivari for that year, or not, or they just put a label in there with that kind of date in it. I don't think there was any particular rhyme or reason to any of it, to be honest with you. Now, that doesn't mean they're not good violins, but there were just bazillions of copies made. So just don't be fooled. And most of them, if you could read Italian, it wouldn't fool you, because I think it says facete or something, F-A-C-E-I-C-I-E-T or something like that. And I think that means, it's a fake, or it doesn't mean the word fake, but I mean, it just means that it's a copy or something like that. I don't know what that word means, but almost all of them have that word on it. I've never looked it up to see what it means. It didn't really bother me. You can just tell by looking at them. And then also, when you get used to looking at all those old violins, you can generally just look at them and go, "Oh, this one's really old." I mean, you can just tell. They look different than the ones that were made in the late 1800s or the early 1900s. They carried on into the early 1900s with that tradition, and a lot of them, like maybe you'll find one that says 1921 or something. Well, then it was probably 1721, because he lived from the mid 1600s to the early 1700s, somewhere in there. And anyway, that's just kind of how they did it, just to give you some information there, so you don't die of a heart attack thinking you just found a Stradivari. Because, like I said, the chances you could win the lottery 5 times before you find a Stradivari violin. Just so you know, because everybody thinks they have one when they come into the shop. I'm not kidding. You wouldn't even believe how many times people have said that to me. This is a real Stradivari violin. My grandpa owned it. I look at it, and I look in there, and I go, yeah, well, I hate to tell you this. I don't want to lie to them, and I let them down as easy as I can, but it's usually a big letdown to most of them when they hear that. Anyway, let's see, moving on down here. Dottie's praying for us. Thank you so kindly, Dottie. Hope your anything goes well. In fact, I thought you were going to be doing that today. You're not. I guess it's later in the week, I guess. Praying for you. And for Charlie Kirk's family. Yeah, I never did know Charlie Kirk, I didn't even know who he was until after this happened. But yeah, it's really a senseless thing. And people are, I don't know. It's a sad state of affairs, though. Just people in general. When you talk about people in general, man, it seems like it's just getting worse all the time. Everybody's got such strong opinions on everything, and no one can see the other side of the coin. Nobody can. They can only see one side of it, and that's all there is to it anymore. And I don't think it should be like that. I mean, as I've said many times, and I don't mind telling you, generally speaking, I'm a Republican, but I can see a lot of good things that some of the Democrats, push for, want, and I can see some of those things, and I have voted Democrat before. I'm not a staunch Republican. I'm a Republican in general, by what it stands for, not so much by the dang rhetoric on either side of the fence. And there's plenty of it on both sides, trust me. And I think that's what we all need to do, is step back from it and look at it and say, yeah, well, maybe they are going a little too far. Maybe I'm a Republican, but maybe these guys are going a little too far, and they both, on both sides, go a little too far quite often. And I think we all need to step back and look at that and make better decisions, Ben Boyd, have you ever thought about putting a little battery-operated LED counter on your water wheel? Well, no, I haven't really, but it wouldn't be too hard to do. They've got all kinds of. In fact, I've got a revolution counter or something. I can't remember. I don't even know where it is now, but I do have something like that puts these little shiny stickers on, and then you point this thing at it, and it tells you how many revolutions. But I counted them one day when it was going slow like this, and it's surprising how many revolutions it makes in a minute. It makes quite a few, but when it's going slow like this, it's not real impressive. But it does go quite a bit faster whenever there's plenty of rain, and we haven't had any for quite a while. We need some bad. The little bitty rains that we've been getting for the last month and a half or 2 months, it's just been just a tiny amount, just enough to maybe dampen the top of the ground for just a little bit, but nothing to run off. Ronald Todd says, was Paul correct in turning the bridge around on his, I guess that's supposed to be restoration guitar? Well, I'm going to just say it like this. Paul's correct if he thinks he's correct. Now, yeah, I noticed he turned it around, and the Gibson bridges are backwards, in my opinion. I don't know why they turned their bridges the way they did. It kind of even looks dumb, to be honest, on a lot of them. They didn't do that on every guitar, but most of them had their bridges around backwards in a certain era, or at least what I call backwards. Of course, I'm more of a Martin fan than I am a Gibson fan, I'll be honest, but I think there's been some really good Gibsons out there too, especially in the electric field, and especially in their mandolins. Their Gibson mandolins are just top-notch, or always were, especially when on the Lloyd Lower side of the fence. But so I don't have anything against Gibson, you understand. I just think they did a lot of things that just didn't make a lot of sense. Like plastic bridges and a whole bunch of other things that they did. Let's see. Dottie said that Paul's guitar looks fantastic too. Yep, I think he did a nice job. Let's see. Tom Armstrong, wondering if you could read the lovely essay that your grandson wrote a while back about America. Seems like this would be a good time to hear it again. Well, I'd have to find it. I vaguely remember what you're talking about. I honestly don't remember that much about it, so I'd have to talk to Sue and see if we've got that here anywhere or where I can find it. But thanks for the reminder, Tom. Buzzy Muswell says, I like the post. Peace. Yeah, well, I do too. I think the post adds to it. I don't think it detracts. You can't see it in the video real well, but that base is a stone base, to kind of match the stone wall there too. David Tackett, I get to watch you live today. Love those railings on the wheelhouse. Watched your videos on the 41 Martin. Well, thank you, David. Appreciate you watching the videos. Let's see here. And it rolled on me again. There's Dottie. Says, the water wheel is absolutely beautiful. Jerry, you should be very proud of a job well done. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm pretty proud about it, but I just want to get it done. And right now, it's too hot to start on the next project anyway. It's just crazy hot out there. It's crazy, especially for this late in the year, to be this hot. It usually about, either this, I would say maybe in another week. Usually in another week in September in Missouri, we have a really cold spell. I mean, it gets kind of chilly. Maybe not freezing, but really very chilly. And then it warms back up again. But right now it seems like it's going to get hotter and hotter. Although Sue said it is supposed to cool off a little bit next week. So I'm hoping the next week to get started on my well house project. Bohorn, looking forward to seeing you at Mountain View next month. Well, cool, Bo. I'm glad you're going to be there. And if anybody else is interested in going, I think 16th, 17th, 18th, I believe it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, whatever those days are. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, about the 16th, 17th, 18th. And we'll be in Mountain View, Arkansas, so you could come down and jam with us or just camp out and just enjoy the music, whatever. Gary Cooper says he loves the water wheelhouse. Thank you. Mike Saba, Jerry, tell use about your paint sprayer. Okay, I'm not sure what you mean there, but tell us about the paint sprayer. That's probably what you're saying. Well, the paint sprayer is a Graco, Graco. It's a 360, and I think it's the VSR. I think it's a 360 VSR, variable speed, something like that. Anyway, it does have the variable speed. It was their, of the 360 series, it was their best one, and I'm real happy with it. I will tell you this, because now I've sprayed both paint and stain with it. I really, really like it for the stain. For the paint, it's very good. I mean, I'm not knocking it. But I would give it a perfect 10 on the stain, and I'd give it a 9.5 on the paint. But I will tell you, it's actually, in my opinion, it's actually harder to clean it with the latex paint than it is with the oil-based paint. The oil-based paint, because of using paint thinner, it wipes right off. You can just, but with the latex paint, it'll actually kind of embed itself in there, and if it dries at all, it's really hard to get it off. If you don't know anything about paint sprayers, cleaning them is an absolute must. I mean, you need to clean them and clean them and clean them and clean them and get them perfectly clean. Because if you don't, the next time you go to use them, you're going to have trouble. You really need to spend the effort to clean it. Now, you will save so much time painting whatever it is you're painting that it's worth the cleaning. But you need to do the cleaning. So just understand that when you get a paint sprayer, it's not like a paintbrush. You walk over and slop it around and wipe it off, and you're pretty much done cleaning it. It don't take too long to clean a paintbrush. Though the way I clean them, it probably takes a little longer because I'm pretty particular about cleaning paintbrushes also. But paint sprayer, trust me, you're going to spend some time on that puppy. And you need to take it completely apart. There's lots of parts, and you need to take it apart and clean every part you can clean and get it back, put it back. Especially, of course, around the nozzle and this little spray, I don't know what you call those things, but all of the business end of it for sure, but your cup and where it feeds into the machine and all that. All that stuff needs to be super clean. So it's a kind of a pain. It's a double-edged sword. It will save you so much time on your painting job, though. It's worth it. Now, the one I bought was the more expensive one, and I would imagine that the other ones will probably be just fine if you're on a budget. I would imagine they would be. I'm kind of having second thoughts of, did I really need to buy the best one, The reason I went ahead and bought the best one was because I think it was the only one that came with both the spray and the paint. The stain and paint adapters. It comes with like 4 adapters, a wide one for stain and a wide one for paint, and then a narrow one for each of those two. Not that it was worth the extra money for that, because I think you can buy those things separately and it would have been cheaper, but it also has the variable speed, which I don't even know if that's all that necessary either, to be honest with you. So I'm just telling you, that's the one I got. I really do think it's very good, especially on the stain. I was impressed how it put that stain on. Very, very good. didn't have to hardly rub. I did take a paintbrush with me, and then I did touch up the stain in a place or two, but with a dry brush mainly, just to move it around a little bit, like if I got it on too thick. But overall, I didn't hardly have to touch it with a brush at all. Randy Rogers, I always keep saying that, says, water wheelhouse is looking great. I couldn't tell from the video. Have you stained the roof or still planning on it? Well, right now I'm still considering it for sure. I definitely am not going to do that for a while till it cools off, but I kind of think I'm going to get up there and stain the roof too. And mainly because it's got that varnish or whatever built into it, and I think it'll make that roof last a lot longer. I almost like the look of the contrast of the difference in the color. Maybe I'll get a different color stain for it and put a different color stain on the roof. I don't know, but maybe not. I don't know. I have to talk it over with Sue, but I haven't done anything to it yet. GMP Old Marine Shop. Hi, Jerry. Wow, 90s is current in this current video. It's in the low 70s here in the East Coast. Those railing balusters blend nicely with the siding vertically. Yeah, I'm real happy with the handrail there that I put on there. I felt like I was happy with it without it, but quite honestly, it really did help set it off. It's just another one of those visual things that looks really nice on there. So I just glad we did it. I'm glad you talked me into it. I was going to do it anyway, but I wasn't in any big hurry about it. Bruce Ducker, falsificare. If you're talking about that word that's on the, facsimile, that could be what that means. The Bill Mumbo says facsimile or duplicado means exact copy in Italian. Well, yeah, it's, I don't know what the word is. I think it's FACEIT, I think, is what I think it says. It might be IET. But anyway, that word's on a lot of them. I'm not saying it's on every one of them, but it's on a lot of them. And there's another word that I can't think of that's on a lot of those labels too. In fact, you'll see both words. I can't remember what the other word is, but I've seen labels with both words on it, and you kind of know it's a copy thing. Paul Akers, glue and wood are easy. Finish is nightmare. You would not believe the story behind that guitar. Yeah, the finish it's always a nightmare. Just like I've said, building and repairing them is a piece of cake. When you got to go to the finish, that's when you got your work cut out for you. It's really hard on an instrument because everybody critiques the finish. Everybody looks at it, and it's really hard to get good results on a finish. And I definitely do not think I'm the expert on the finish. That's for sure. I do not think so at all. Not even close. GMP Old Marine Shop got stung on the forehead yesterday. Yellow Jackets got them mad somehow. They were in the patio tree bench I made, but been quiet till yesterday. Funny you say that, because I had 2 pieces of firewood, large log, short pieces, stood up, and then I had just a board set across there as a bench. It was just a rough sawn board off the sawmill, and we made a bench out of that. And guess what? Yellow Jackets got in that too. That's crazy. Yeah, it's funny. Maybe it's something they like about that. Speaking of hornets, which we weren't, but Yellow Jackets are basically a hornet. I found another hornet nest. I think this past winter, I think I found like 5 of them, 4 or 5 for sure. And I've found another one on one of the horse paths. We call it the dump road. I've mentioned it before that it's really not a dump, but we call it the dump road. On the dump road back, I don't know, about halfway before you get back to where the Native American place was. Looking right above the trail, there's a hornet's nest that's about 10 feet above our heads, and it's a pretty good sized hornet's nest. So I'm going to get that one this winter. I'll wait till after the first good frost, and maybe a few days after that even. Gino Hitch, Jerry, could you tell us about the dog your dad had that was so smart? Yeah, I started to tell that when the day where the video got cut off, and I just kept rambling about it, I went on for quite a long time, but it turned out nobody was there to hear it. So I don't know how much I told you the last time before we got cut off, because I didn't go back and look at it to see. I don't know. Do you want to, if somebody wants to fill me in, how far did I get? How much did I say? Or, I'll be glad to tell you about it, because it's pretty amazing, really. And it's all 100% true. That dog was one of a kind. I've never seen anything like that dog. And never had to be trained or anything. He just was just a genius. I don't even know how to put it any other way. But I'll go on through these comments a little bit, and then maybe somebody will comment of how much I told already, or or maybe how much you want to hear. Kim Z77C, prayers for Dottie. Yep. And then Gary Cooper, prayers for Dottie. Yep. Let's see. David Tharp, when I was very young, I had a lazy eye. As grew older, it spread to all the rest of my body. Oh, you need to get those taken care of early, because that's what will happen. Let's see. G&P Marine Shop, could a pump be put in the pond to pump water to the chute to turn fast in dry times? Well, I guess you could do that, but I'm not going to do that. It just, first of all, there's no close electric by there to get, I could do solar, but I'm not going to. Just too much work. Paul Akers, Gibson put the reverse bridge the first time. The second time replaced top, they put non-reverse. I went original. Okay. Yeah. So I didn't. It looked. I don't know. I need to look at it again. I can't remember. I thought it was the other way around, but maybe I'm sure I'm wrong. That's what happens with me all that time, especially with reading stuff. I get it backwards all the time and screw it up. David Tackett, Itchy Boots, so where does she go next? Seems like her current ride is going to be snowy and icy. I think she said she's headed to China. I'm not positive of that, but she's got quite a bit to go through to get there. I don't know. It seemed like it was China. I can't remember. That's her ultimate destination, I think. But then somebody will correct me, because I'm usually wrong on those kinds of things. Floyd Countryman, Jerry, I see a Hoff violin in an ad for sale. What do you think the odds are of it having a real good sound? They're asking $200 for it. Well, generally speaking, Hoff violins are very good violins. So I would say it's a very good chance. I'd say an 80-20 chance you could make that into something really good. 80% meaning that you could for sure probably make it into something good. I mean, you never know with violins. I mean, somebody could have already screwed it up so bad that it wouldn't be worth your effort. You'd have to look at it pretty close, and but assuming that it looks relatively original, I would say there's a very, very good chance you could turn that into something really nice. Randy Rogers, my youngest son is entering the flat picking guitar contest this Saturday at Winfield, so wish him luck and say hi if you're at the festival. Cool. Well, that's really cool. I do wish him luck. I hope he does super well. Bo's praying for Dottie. Theron Corbett, boiled linseed oil on your cedar shingles. Yeah, you could do that. The only problem with linseed oil, well, first of all, I don't know how UV resistant that is. It might be. I don't know. But but it takes forever for linseed oil to really dry well. Even the boiled stuff takes a while to dry. The non-boiled takes forever. I mean, it may never dry. But the boiled linseed oil, I mean, it would be a good covering. There's nothing wrong with doing that for sure. But I think I really do like this Cabot stain stuff. I think it's the stuff to put on there. So that's what I'll go with. But I don't think you could hurt it by doing the boiled linseed either. John Kohlhoff, Jerry, I have the ringing in my ears. I find that if I turn radio on and turn off the channel just a little, the background noise helps. Being in the quiet makes the ringing very loud. Yeah, that is for sure. If you're in a place where it's super quiet, like when I'm sitting out deer hunting, when I used to set out deer hunting, I don't hardly do that anymore. But when you're sitting out in a quiet spot like that, it gets louder and louder and louder. It drives you crazy. And like someone said that they put earplugs in. Well, for me, if I put earplugs in, it just gets worse. Yeah, like you wouldn't believe how loud that is when I close my ears off. It's not pretty. Just read the shirt. And like I say, to me these are minor things compared to what a lot of people are living with. I know I've got it good, so please don't think I'm complaining. That's not it at all. Shoot, I count my blessings every single day because reasonably healthy and everything's pretty darn good for me. So thank you. Let's see. Yeah, Google says Facibot Anno. Yeah, I see that a lot. I've actually seen it shortened to just instead of the BAT, I've seen it shortened to a T also. I'm pretty sure I have. I could be dreaming. I definitely have seen the what you're saying there too. Definitely have. So I don't know. Anyway, I think the bottom line to take away from is if it says Stradivarius in it or Stradivari or any of that, it's a fake. I mean, like it just is a fake. The odds of it being real are so slim. Like I said, you could win the lottery 5 times before you'll ever find a real Stradivari violin. That's just an opinion more than it is anything else. But it's opinion based on seeing a whole lot of stuff. Let's see. Bill Mumble says, thumbs up, guys, if you would, please. Dottie says, Jerry, the operation is tomorrow at 6 a.m., leaving for Charleston to spend the night after the vlog. Well, cool. Wow. Good luck to you. I just know it's going to turn out just great. Ronald Todd, I think Itchy Boots is going to India next. Well, I think that's true. I do think she is going. She's going to cross the border into another country for sure. There's a long way to get to China, but I think her ultimate goal is China. Russell Allen, I thought Itchy Boots was ultimately heading for Japan. Well, maybe it is Japan. China, Japan, it's all the same. Now I'm gonna get hate mail for sure on that one. Did you notice I was laughing? I was just kidding. It's terrible. It's just terrible. David Williams, hi Jerry, great blogs. I have been following you for a long time. Always entertaining. Please keep up the good work. Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. Well, now for those of you who want to stick around and listen to the story about Sonny, the Wonderdog, and you can think I'm making this up if you want to, or you can think I'm stretching the story, but I promise you, I'm not going to stretch it at all. I'm going to tell you exactly like I've seen it, and it's been done for years. Well, it was done for years. He's been long gone now, of course, but it's a cool story about this dog. I mean, he was just extra different. I mean, completely different than any dog I've ever seen in my whole life. let's see. GMP owners, they say all the 600 plus Stradivari violins are documented. Yeah, well, I'm sure the ones that are documented are definitely documented. I don't doubt that there's not one out there somewhere that nobody's found yet, but the odds that it's going to be you that finds it, that's what I'm getting at. All right, so here we go with the dog story. So, and like I said, if you want to stick around, great. If not, I understand. The dad was delivering a bunch of horses out to Wyoming, and he was, I don't know, there was 8 or 9 horses that they were taking out to some park rangers. Well, every so often they, on their way out to Wyoming, I think they had 2 trucks and trailer loads. I think my great uncle Gene Duncan was with him. They're the ones that look identical. I told you that story before. My dad and my great uncle look like identical twins. They really do. I even confused them one time. Anyway, they have to pull over to the side of the road and water the horses and give them exercise and stuff after so many hours, And since it was about noontime, Mom was fixing lunch. My little sister was only, I think, 4 years old at the time. She's approximately 10, 12 years younger than me, something like that, just to give you an idea how long ago this was. Quite a long time ago. Anyway, they were, doing their thing in the creek there. My little sister was playing down near the creek. Well, all at once, here comes this dog running off the mountain, coming down the hill, right, crosses the creek. Dad was a little concerned. He thought the dog might have been vicious, but you could see the dog was almost starved to death. He was skin and bones. Just, either somebody dumped him or got lost, because this was out in the middle of nowhere. There were no houses anywhere around, for miles and miles. So, Mom could see how starved this dog was, so she starts, since she was fixing lunch anyway, she starts feeding him scraps and, put out something for him there, and he's just eating away. And about that time, while he's eating, he's starving. Now remember this, my little sister falls in the creek, and, I don't know, she just screams when she does. This dog stops eating, runs over, grabs my little sister by her collar like this, and pulls her backwards out of the creek. Just out of the blue like that. Dad looks at that dog and he goes, "Oh, I don't know where that dog came from, but he's going home with me." He couldn't believe that a starving dog would stop eating and go over and do something like that. You could tell he was a young dog. I mean, he wasn't like old. You could just tell he was only maybe a year old or something like that. But he was starving. Well, anyway, long story short, down past all this, when they get back, well, this dog and Dad, they become inseparable. And Dad would, anywhere Dad would go, the dog would go with him. As long, if it was just my dad going like in the truck, well, the dog was always with him, Sonny. And Sonny would ride in the back of the truck. He never rode in the cab. He always rode in the back. And he would stand up on the side of the truck, and put his head around the cab and watch where they were going and all that. And Dad and Sonny, they kind of became famous at all the horse shows and stuff. People would see Dad have Sonny do stuff all the time. Like maybe Dad would drop something when he was carrying a saddle or something. He'd say, "Sonny, go pick that up and bring it over here." And so he would talk to Sonny just like that. He never said, like, he wouldn't point and go, "Sonny, pick that right there, pick that up." No, he'd just say, "Sonny, pick up that comb that I dropped and bring it over here." And he'd run over and he'd grab it and pick it up and bring it there, Or he could say stuff like this, and you can believe what you want again. It doesn't seem possible, but it's true. Like he'd say, "Sonny, there's a milk jug laying over there." There could be 10 different things laying out in this yard. And he'd say, "Sonny, go get that milk jug and put it in the back of that truck." And he'd run over there and he'd grab that sucker and he'd run around. He'd jump into the back of the truck. He'd jump over the tailgate and drop whatever it was, and then he'd jump back out. And if you or I tried to get him to do that, that ain't going to happen. I mean, he would listen to you to a certain degree, but he wasn't like he would listen to my dad. If my dad said it, he'd kill himself doing whatever my dad said to do. I mean, he wouldn't quit until he got it done. You or I tell him to do something, he's a nice dog. He'd do something, but not necessarily like he would do for Dad. So one of the things they would do every single morning was Dad would go to the donut shop and with his cronies sit there and, have donuts and coffee and stuff. Well, Sonny would sit in the back of the truck and he'd never get out of that truck. I mean, like if there could be dogs down barking around him or whatever, and he'd just stand there, just ignore it more or less. And then the ladies got to know him pretty well that ran the donut shop, and they would come to the door and they'd have a donut in the bag and they'd set it outside the door, and they'd go back in, and Sonny would jump out, know that that was for him, and he'd jump out and he'd go over and get the bag and he'd jump back in the back of the truck and he'd eat his donut. There was talking about other dogs, with your dog, you're always concerned about fights and things like that. Well, Sonny, he grew to be a very large blue heeler. He was a blue heeler. He looked almost pit bullish in the front. He was built. He was really built. One of the biggest blue heelers I've ever seen. He was really big for a blue heeler. But he looked like a pure blood blue heeler. He didn't look like he was mixed with something else. Just a big dog. Well, anyway, if a stray dog would come in the yard, Dad'd say, Sonny, run him off. And that didn't mean fight. That meant get rid of him. And Sonny would get rid of him. He'd do whatever he had to do to get rid of him. If it took a little nip or whatever, or bark at him or whatever, he would do it. If it came down to a fight, Dad would say, Sonny, hold him. And so Sonny'd grab him by the throat and just hold the dog. And even if it was a big dog, Sonny'd grab him and just hold him, And then Dad would say, Sonny, turn him loose. And he'd turn him loose. And generally those other dogs would take off, generally speaking. That exact thing happened when Dad, if you know where Chesterfield Mall is out in West St. Louis County, those of you in Missouri probably do, but anyway, it was about 40 miles west of St. Louis. There was this new mall at the time, and there was lots of weeds around this shopping mall, great big parking lot and all that. But out past that, there was these weeds. Well, Dad would run his dogs out there, and Sonny would go with him. Dad was running his beagles. In other words, the beagle, just giving them exercise, letting them run around and chase rabbits, that kind of thing like they do. And Sonny would be with Dad all the time. Well, this jogger comes running by, and he's got a great big dog. I don't remember what it was now, but it was a big dog. And he sicked his dog on Sonny, even though, like he said, get him, whatever his dog was. Well, Dad couldn't be seen at that point. The guy didn't know Dad was down there. And Dad says, Sonny, get him. And so, because the other dog had been sicked on Sonny, and he was coming for him. And Sonny grabbed a hold of that dog, and that guy was screaming for Sonny to turn him loose, And Dad says, Sonny, turn him loose. And he turned him loose, And then my dad says to that guy, he says, I guess you'll think twice before you sick your dog on another one in the future. But Sonny was like that. He was smart. He didn't just lose his cool, I mean, he was always in control. He was just like that. And so one of the things that would happen all the time when Dad was out at horse shows and things would be people would walk up to him and say, have him do something he's never done before. Well, it just so happened I was there and I witnessed this, and this is one where I thought Dad went way too far. I thought there's no way he can do what you just asked him to do. What did he ask him to do? There was a wooden fence, with boards, like 3 boards, and then there's a corner post. Well, like there's a post sitting there, and there's about a 6x6 post. He says, okay, well, let me think of something here. He says, Sonny, sit down on top of that post right there. I kid you not. Sonny got around on the inside corner of that and climbed up and turned around and sat down on that post. I never dreamed that dog could do that. I just thought, there's no way. You're going too far now. And I watched him do it. He sat down on top of that post. that dog would do anything that Dad told him to do. I've never seen anything like it in my whole life. So here's another situation where the dog was just smarter than he should have been. Mom and Dad were gone out to dinner or someplace, and then they come back. Well, Dad walks through the house and goes on out the back and heads towards the barn. Well, when he gets down there, he could tell something ain't right. He says there was stuff everywhere, stuff knocked over, just things broken, it was just it looked like somebody went through and just threw stuff down everywhere. Well, he didn't know where Sonny was. He had called for Sonny, and he didn't see Sonny anywhere. So Dad's barn is, it's got a center thing, and you ride around it, kind of like JR's barn if you've seen it, and you ride around the outside, and everything's in the center of the barn, so you can't see through and see what's on the back side. Well, he walks around, and he sees Sonny sitting there just like this in front of one of the stallion's stall doors. One of the stallions had got out and wreaked havoc in the barn and just really tore the place up. Well, Sonny put him back in his stall and just sat there and waited for Dad to get home. So it's just to give you an idea of how smart this dog was. He was on a different level. And another thing that Dad would use him for, like I said, he went with him everywhere. But if, just as an example, I've seen him do this, but like if you were out somewhere and you lost something, Dad would say, Sonny, go find Joe's glove. Joe dropped his glove out there somewhere. Go find it. Pew! Take off, and he'd be gone maybe 5-10 minutes. He'd come back with that glove. I'm telling you, it's just uncanny how the dog would do that. And I get two more stories, and one of them would be like when he would go out to these big pastures. He had one pasture that was 600 and some acres, and the horses could be anywhere. And if you know how big 600 and some acres is, I mean, like we got 280 here, and it'd take you, an hour to walk to the back end and around, and try to find the horses, So he'd say, Sonny, go get the horses and bring them up here. Because, like he'd take people out to show them a particular horse. Well, you got to find them. And so he'd say, Sonny, go get the horses and bring them back. That dog just take off, and he'd go clear out of sight. And then maybe 5-10 minutes later, here he'd come, and all the horses would be in front of him. It's just amazing. Just amazing what he could do. The other... This is a really funny story, but Dad did this all the time and fooled lots of people. This was one they kind of made it up as a trick, but it would really fool you if you didn't know the inside story. And Bob Sharp, I remember specifically it happening to Bob Sharp. He was a tractor. He owned a big tractor company in the St. Louis area, sold tractors in St. Louis. And Dad and him were friends because Dad had bought matter of fact, that Ford tractor you see, the one that I've restored, the Ford 4000, Dad bought it from Bob Sharp. Well, anyway, Bob and him were friends, and Bob was over all the different times, but I think this was one of the first times that Bob had ever seen Sonny, I guess. I mean, they weren't like best friends. They weren't spending time together all the time, but every once in a while they saw each other. And that's one of those occasions. So anyway, Bob was over there at the farm, at the Dad's house, and they were down at the back in the barn. And they were just chit-chatting, talking, and Dad says to Bob, he says, hey, Bob, we've got a lot of eggs. Would you like a dozen farm fresh eggs? And Bob says, well, sure, yeah, that'd be great. And so he just looks at Sonny. He says, Sonny, go tell Mary to put a dozen eggs in a brown paper bag and bring them down here for, you bring them back here for Bob Sharp. Sonny turns around, takes off, just like that. He didn't, again, Dad's just talking to the dog like I'm talking to you. There's no gestures, no nothing. He just says, Sonny, go tell Mary to get a dozen eggs and put them in a brown bag for Bob Sharp here. Sonny takes off. Well, 5 minutes later, here he comes back. He's got a paper sack, Bob's just like, what is going on? How the heck does this dog know how to do this? He's like, this can't be real. So Dad says, well, let's see if he followed instructions. So he opens up the bag. He starts counting them. He goes, 1, 2, 3. There was 13 eggs in the bag. And so Dad gets mad at him. He says, Sonny, doggone you. He says, you can't count. He says, I told you to tell Mary to get him a dozen eggs. You got 13 here. And Sonny, just stood there. Bob Sharp's just eating this up like, what's going on, But what it really was Sonny knew that to just go pick up whatever was on the back porch in a brown bag. Mom always put it in a brown bag. And they had an intercom between them, and Dad would call up on the intercom and say, put some hypodermic needles in a brown bag. I'll send Sonny up. So anytime Sonny would go get something, he knew to pick up the brown bag and bring it back, So that's how it actually happened, but Bob didn't know that. So he was pretty impressed. He was pretty impressed. Now that was one fine dog. He was something else, and he was the gentlest, kindest dog too. He could also climb a tree. I've seen him more than once. Dad would say, Sonny, there's that plastic hanging up there in that branch. Would you get up there and would you go get that? Sonny'd run up that dang tree. It had to be a tree that he could run up, but he'd run up the tree, go out on that limb, get the plastic bag and come back. He was just something different. You just never seen anything like this dog. He would make Lassie look like an idiot. I mean, he really would. He was that kind of smart. And nobody really trained him. Dad didn't spend hours training him tricks or nothing. He just knew how to do anything you asked him to do. Again, it really had to come from Dad before it would actually stick and work. He would play with you and I mean, like he'd shake hands and he'd chase a ball and stuff like that. But if you really wanted him to do something impressive, it had to come from Dad. I don't know. I don't know how that ever came to be, but it sure did. And it was a match made in heaven for those two, for sure. All right, well, I'm going to get off here. Diane Craver says, dogs are great. Let's see, maybe I've passed a few of those other ones up. Let's see. Preston Johnson says, I think Itchy Boots said destination was Japan as long as she's not ended up in North Korea. Yeah, you don't want to go there, I don't think. That would not be pretty. Bill Mumbo, David Williams, you must put question marks in front of your message. David Williams, hi Jerry, great blogs. I have been following. Okay, I think I got that one earlier, I think. But thank you, David. Let's see. Diane Craver says, dogs are great. Let's see. GMP Old Marine Shop. Maybe Sonny was a escaped circus dog. Yeah, I don't know. He was real young. He was only like maybe a year old when they got him. And he lived for a long time. When Dad couldn't bear to see him die and didn't want to have him put to sleep, he actually gave him to another close friend that had a real big farm. And when he knew Sonny was toward the end, and he gave him to that guy, and he lived out his days on a big farm. And Dad never had to deal with the actually passing of the dog that way, I guess. Don Nice, Jerry, your red and blue shirt looks good. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Tom Armstrong, too funny. See, yeah, I think that's it, guys. Yeah, Sonny was one of a kind of dog. I'll never see another one like it as long as I live. I mean, just completely different than anything you ever saw. Any dog is very capable of learning tricks and things, but that wasn't quite the way it was with Sonny. Nobody ever taught him a trick, as far as I know. He just knew how to do stuff. It's just craziest thing I ever saw. And to find him in such a random way, the way they found him too, it's just it just was something that was meant to be, I think. I think God had a hand in it. Well, y'all take care. We will see you tomorrow with something else.